Hello everyone. Welcome to the 47th webinar in 12D's training webinar series. My name is Lisa Stewart and I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator here at 12D Solutions. 12D's training webinars showcase common industry challenges, taking a close look at industry best practices and how these can be implemented using 12D products. The aim of these webinars is to upskill 12D users and broaden their understanding of the capabilities of 12D products. We run these webinars regularly and record them for posting through our website and on YouTube. The first 46 webinars from this training series, as well as the 44 webinars from our Industry Solutions series, are available on our YouTube channels if you missed those. During this live presentation, you'll be able to type your questions along the way. We'll put instructions on the screen. We'll answer as many as possible of those throughout the webinar. And at the end, I'll read out some of your questions to the presenter for his insights if there's time. Today's webinar, Survey Utility Modelling, will be presented by Paul Hardwick, who has been in the civil construction industry for over 16 years. He has worked as a construction surveyor on small and large-scale projects and has had many years of experience contracting to local authorities carrying out detail surveys for pre-design works. Paul has been with 12D Solutions for over 6 years in a training and support role. Today's presentation will look at modelling and attributing services in 12D Model 14, made easy with the addition of new options. We'll teach you how to automate service modelling. Over to you, Paul.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, as Lisa said, we'll be covering a few of the features inside 12D V14. We'll also revisit some old favorites, Mapfiles, Attribute Manipulator, and then some of the new features we have is the Service Chamber Many, new to V14, Global Attributes, Translate Points by Attribute Depth, and Attribute Depth Validation. So let's jump into 12D. And as the title of the webinar says, this is the service modelling for surveyors. So in future webinars we'll cover more advanced modelling tools using the MTF for designers. This is bouncing around a little bit because of the team view, I assume it's flickering. Okay, so let's start off with basic creating a pipe string inside 12D. Okay, so when you want to create a string, you've got the property controls up in the top here. So you've got your string name, model, color, height. But over here further is the pipe control bar. So if you don't have the pipe control bar turned on, you can go to your toolbars and go to pipe control bar and toggle on pipe control bar. So this enables you to set the size of a pipe before you actually draw the string. So here I'm going to create a pipe with a diameter and say that it is an invert justified, and I can give it a diameter there of 0.525. So now any string that I create will have this property. So I just draw a string from here to here, and there straight away you can see that this string has a pipe diameter. If I use my string inquire, you should be able to see down the bottom in the segment information it says that the type is a horizontal line, the diameter is a 525, invert justified. Okay, so that's if you want to draw a string, set the diameter. If you already have a string drawn and you want to set it to have a diameter, there's multiple ways to do this inside 12D. I'm just going to show you a few of the simple ways. So one of the options you can use is the string inquire to set the pipe diameter. So when I highlight the string, I highlight the segment, then I can right mouse button and hover out on the segment number. And see, you can see diameter. So if I select diameter, then I can say pipe entire string invert justified and diameter 1.05 and then hit apply. Then that will have that diameter. Another way you might want to do it is under the global tools, so utilities, superstrings, pipe culvert. And here you can use the source box to pick the strings that you want to set the diameter for, multi-pick. And if I hit the pick, I can pick as many strings as I like, escape, and I can set the pipe mode to set, apply constant, and set a diameter of 2 meters and change. So now you can see all those strings have now been turned to 2 meter pipes. Okay, so to make this a little bit more automated, because this is what we want to do, we're going to introduce the map file to be able to create some pipes. So if we go to File, Map Files, and I'll just pin that little menu off and I'll go Create Edit, and I'll just create a map file called Pipes. And I'm just going to go down to my Pipes branch and select String. So what I'm going to do here is with the string, you can, based on the name of the string, you can set its size. A little bit later on, I'm going to show you how to use attributes to set the size, but just as a little example, I'm going to show you here setting the size of a pipe using the string name. So these strings here, if I turn off this curve returns and turn on their string names, I've called these strings A, B, C, D. Okay, so I'm going to say the A string is a diameter and it is a 0.375, and B is a diameter and it is 1.05, and C is diameter 1.8, and E, and I've only got D, sorry, diameter, and I'll set this one to say 0.225, and I'll write that away. So you can also specify if it's a culvert as well. So if it was a culvert, this first column here is your width, and the second column here is the height, this size 1 and size 2, and the same goes for the size boxes up in here as well. Okay, and I can also set the justification here, so I'll just set them all to invert and write that away. Okay, so now to apply the map file, we go Apply, and I'm just going to apply it to this a model called String Sizes, and I'm going to pick my pipes map file I just created, replace existing data, and hit Convert. So there's one way you can use the map file to then create the sizes. So if we go into the perspective view, you can see my data here. If I turn on my CAD model, you can see the other ones I created also. It's interesting that this view is not flickering with the team viewer. Don't know why the other view is flickering. Hopefully it's not too annoying for you. Okay, so that's creating pipes in the simple form of drawing them in and also using the map file to use strings. So let's go to the next level of being able to automate creating pipes, because you can see that with the names, using the names, the map file could get quite big for all the different variations of names that you want. So instead of using names, we're going to show you how to use attributes. So this is some data that's been read in through the survey data reduction, and each of these strings, well, the majority of them have attributes. So let's have a look at some of these. So if I use my F8 is our shortcut key for attributes, or if you like the menus, strings, properties, attributes, will also bring up the same panel. Okay, so if I pick on this string here and have a look at the vertex attributes, it has an attribute here called diameter, and it says that it's a 30mm pipe. And it also has an attribute here called pipe position. So whether they surveyed it at the center, top, bottom of the pipe. Okay, so we're going to use these attributes when we map our data to size our pipes. Okay, so you can imagine if I had to have a different name for every different size of pipe in here, the map file could get really big really quick. Okay, so let's have a look at the map file here. So if I go open on this map file, so the surveyors in the audience will recognize this survey data reduction panel. This is what we use to reduce our raw data. Okay, so if I have a look under pipes, and under string I have nothing, but under vertex I have this. So in the name, I could specify the name to say the size, but in my case I don't care about the name of the string. All I care about is that it has an attribute, the string has an attribute called pipe pos. And in this one, if the string has a vertex attribute called pipe pos, and I'll just open that up, pipe pos, and the value is set to top, then it will make it through to this part of the map file. And so I can specify that the justification is the obvert because the attribute says here top, and I can say the shape is our diameter, and I have an attribute called dollar pipe diameter, or pipe DIA. So that's the name of my attribute on my vertex. And I have one here for if the surveyor was to pick it up in the center, and another one if he picks it up at the invert. And you can see I've got these set here. Now at the moment I have them turned off, so I'll turn them, clear them out and turn them on so that these will actually work now. Write that away. And if I reduce my data again, you'll see here that the majority of my strings have now got pipe diameters on them. And if I go into a perspective view and add in these models here, and maybe some pits. So you can see all of the pipe strings here. So the ones that haven't been piped, that's because it's missing the diameter attribute. So that's actually a good tool that you can actually specify and have a look to see if attributes are missing. So by the fact that it didn't get a diameter, straight away you can see that the pipes, the strings are missing those attributes. So either you need to go give them some attributes, or you can ask the surveyor, how come you didn't get attributes on these? We are unable to see the diameter. What's the reason behind it? So you can definitely see the power there of being able to use the map file to create the pipes. So very, very nifty tool here to be able to see all the data piped. And it just makes it a little bit easier for when you want to do clash detection. There's a previous webinar that talks about clash detection, so this will also help you with that as well. I think you can see it's getting pretty close. This shouldn't clash obviously because it's existing data. Okay, so that's the map file creating the pipe strings. So the next step from that is to be able to create pits, 3D pits where the surveyor has surveyed the data here. Okay, so for this, what we're going to do is we're going to use an option now in V14 BIM Trimesh, create, and service chamber many. So I'll bring this one up, and it does have a function, but before I'll just show you a few of the fields here, and we'll fill out a few of the fields, and then I'll select my function so it fills out the rest of them. Okay, so it can create pits from the attributes on strings. So the first thing I kind of need to do is this works on string attributes. Okay, so we need to make sure that we get our vertex attributes, and we're going to move these from the vertex onto the string level. So at the moment there's no attribute on the string, there's only ones on the vertex. Okay, so I need attributes like the length, width, depth, attributes like that, okay? And also it'll be nice to have some of these other attributes sitting at string level. So if I write out to an IFC for BIM or for GIS, I'll get those attributes as well. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to use the attribute manipulator to get the strings, the attributes from the strings, so off the vertex onto the string. I have shown this in previous webinars as well, one about attribute manipulator. So I'll just quickly bring you this one up. If you need to refresh yourself, you can go back and have a look at those later on. So I'm just going to show you the attribute manipulator file. So I'm going to pick this model here, survey pits, and I'll just quickly show you this file. So I've got a few rules here. So I just want to get the date of vertex 1 and put it to a string attribute, and owner, pit length, width, depth, material, all these attributes, and put them on to string attributes. So that's the attribute manipulator file I'm going to use. Okay, so I'm just going to replace existing data, apply, and if I hit F8, now as well as having these at string level, I've also got them at, I have them at string level, vertex, and now I've also got them at string level as well. Okay, so I'll just close those off. The other thing that this panel requires for you to have is that for custom pits, so where you've surveyed the top of a pit, and it can be any shape you like, it is looking for custom pits must be closed. Okay, so all of these strings where the surveyor has surveyed around the top and hasn't closed the strings, we can now globally close those. So under utilities, A to G, close. And what I'm going to do here is I just want to filter and only pick strings on this model that are line strings. Okay, so I'm going to use my filter. I'm going to filter by model. So I pick the survey pits model. And on my string info, I'm going to say only select line strings. So when I hit filter select, it'll only filter and grab strings that are lines. And I tick this little box here to say close, replace existing data, and process. Now it has closed those 40 strings. This was also added in V14 as well, the global close. Okay, so now I've met those conditions. So on the panel here, if you know the attribute and you can type the attribute in here quite easily, you can just type it in. But if you're not a very good typer like me, or the attribute is a really long attribute because it has a path like ADAC or something, it has the ability to select a seed string. So you can hit the button here to select seed string, pick the string, and then that will give you a list of all of the attributes on the string. So I'm just going to grab this one here called pit depth and hit the copy button. and just paste it into here. So for a custom pit, all you need is the depth, because the string decides the size of the pit. If I have a circular one, I need the diameter. So my attribute is called diameter. Oh, caps lock. And my depth attribute is the same, so I can paste pit depth in there. And for rectangular, you've got a length attribute. So this is if you've just surveyed the point in the middle, and you've got a length, width, rotation is optional, and then a depth attribute. So I'll paste the depth in there, and the length attribute I can grab from here, pit length, copy, paste into there, pit width, copy, paste into there, and if I had a rotation attribute, I could chuck that in there as well. Now there is also the option there for extended pits. So these are the ones that look like a stadium, so it's curved on the end and have an extension in the middle. So here it's asking you for a radius attribute, extension attribute, and depth attribute, and rotation. So I'm not going to bother about doing the extended ones because I have none in this job. Okay, so, and then down here you can pick a model for your, to prefix your tri-mesh that are going to get created. So I'll just pick my function here, pits. So up here it's filled out the survey pits model. So that's the one I'm going to run the data on. And it's also filled out all these other ones as well for me. Okay, so I'm going to put it onto a model here called trimesh / pits. Now this is only possible with the / in V14 if you're using model tree. So when you're using model tree, you'll get a folder structure where you can actually have groups in your model names. So I'm going to put mine under a model called trimesh pits, and then it will put the model name of these survey pits on the end. So if I hit process, okay, so if I now turn that model on, we'll go into a perspective view because it doesn't seem to bounce around as much. I should just stay in these views because it seems to work nicely. Okay, so see here I have my folder structure, so it's that, and hit add, and it creates all of those 3D pits for you. Okay, let's see if we can find a circular one would have been nice if I saved a position. I might have one here. Here we go. So here's the circular pit here as well. Okay, so this one was defined not by a string at the top, but by just a single point in the center of the manhole. And you can see these other ones here were defined by the shape of the surveyed string. And it also will put the funny, if you've got a height wrong or if it's a bit of a slope on the pit, it will also get the depth, the shape from that. The depth is taken from, I think, the first point on the string. Okay, so whatever the depth is always taken from the first point. And then is pushed down. Okay, so now you've got the ability to have those 3D pits so it really does complete the model. The other great thing too is if I use my string inquire, now on the tri-mesh itself, so on the solid pit, all of the attributes that were on the string when it was surveyed are now copied across to the tri-mesh, so that when you write this out to BIM or to any other package, it'll have those attributes as well. It also has an attribute there. It has some attributes here called 12D mesh. Oh, it actually says circular. That's no good. That's wrong. it should have the attribute here about the insertion point, and all the information about how this thing was built. So, which we can use later on as well if you want to edit some of these pits. Okay, so that's modeling the pipes using the map file and attributes, and modeling the pits using attributes with the Trimesh pit creator here. The other thing too I forgot to mention are the settings for the wall thickness and floor thickness. So they're under settings here, and you can set the wall thickness and thickness in here, and I've set them to 0.1. Okay, so the other thing that I did mention in the outset, in the overview, was to be able to translate points by attribute depth. Now, if I have a look at some of the attributes on this one of these strings, on the vertex, I have an attribute called depth BGL, so depth below ground level. Okay, so this one here, it was surveyed at the top, and then it says that it's got to go down 300 millimeters. Okay, so let's go run adoption. This is another one that's new to v14. There has been some posts on the forum about it, and I have given it out to people who have asked for it in v12. So if you want to put something onto the forum, I'll be more than happy to transport it back to v12 for you as well. So under utilities, attributes, there's now this option here, translate points by attribute depth. So I can run it on all of the data in the view, because it only will work on the strings that actually have this depth. So as long as my pits don't have that. So, and the attribute name here is the one I just brought up. I've forgotten what it is already. It was depth below ground. So attribute name. Now it also has the ability to factor those values. So if the values was in millimeters, you could put a factor in there, and it would convert it to meters for you on the fly. So if I hit process, so let's have a look at these ones here. These should move down. Process. Oops, still going. And you can see that it's translated those points down based on that depth. Okay, so that is a great little tool, and has certainly saved people a lot of time. There is another option as well. I'll just quickly show you this, because I don't have a tin for this job. I've only got the services. But under utilities attributes, there's also attribute depth validation. And so basically, once you've translated these points down, you want to be able to validate that against the natural surface to say whether that actually agrees. So you can, you've got the ability to pick a tin, and then you can specify the attribute name, and you can specify the tolerance here that you're happy to accept. So anything that's within, well, hopefully it's a little bit tighter than that, but minus 0.02, and you can give it a report and validate, and it will spit out a CSV of your attribute depth validations. So it's good for checking as well. The other thing that happens when you translate the data is, as a safety mechanism, there's an attribute placed onto the string, onto each vertex, that's called attribute depth lock. So if this attribute exists here, it will not translate that point down again. So just in case you try to run that option twice, it won't translate the points that have these attribute depth locks. It also has an attribute here called original height. So if you ever need to get the data back to where it was, you can reset it back with the attribute, the original height here, using the attribute manipulator. So there's some handy tools in there for being able to model services a little bit more accurately and in ways that are easy to visually see if there's been a mistake. Okay, so let's have a look at another little project here. This one, and I believe I don't have any data in this one yet, so I'm just going to read in a 12DA of some data. Read. Okay, so this data is, I'm gonna go to a perspective view because it actually doesn't jump around in perspective. There you go. Okay, so this data is data from a GIS system, and it has a lot of attributes that are all string attributes. Okay, so it has all of these attributes that say, let's widen him out a little bit. So it has all of these things here. So it's got upstream invert level, upstream surface level, downstream surface level, average depth. All of this information is in here. Okay. The other thing it has, or that it hasn't got, is if I do an inquire on it, the height and from the bottom, the height is all set to 0. And I do not have any diameters on there as well. So what I want to be able to do here is use the attributes on the strings to set the heights, and use the attributes from the pipes to set the diameters. So once again, we're going to go up under utilities, attributes, and we're going to use apply attribute manipulator file. And what I'll do is I've got one here, but I'll just make another just from scratch so you can see how to create one of these. We've got a bit of time, so I can take the time to show you this if you haven't seen it before. So I'm just going to go give it a name called demo, and then hit open. And here I have no rules. So I'm going to hit the plus button and create a rule. And I'm going to hit this yellow letter U. And then this will enable me to pick a string. And then it will get a list of all of the attributes off there, and I can use those as to fill out the attributes I want. So I want this one here, upstream invert level, downstream invert level, and I also want somewhere there, diameter in millimeters. Okay, let's move this over here. So let's go have a look at the first rule. So the diameter in millimeters. Now what do I want to do with it? I want to make that my pipe diameter. So under attribute to modify, I come down here and I select str tin trimesh property. So string, tin and trimesh property. It's changed a little bit from V12. So that's the one you want there. Okay, so the property that I want to change is the pipe diameter. Okay, now my attribute, as this name suggests, are in millimeters, and I want them as real values. So I'm going to put a factor in here of 0.001, which will then factor the attribute by that amount and convert it into real values. Okay, the next rule I have here is upstream invert level. So I want to get this value and turn it into the upstream Z value. So in here, I select vertex property, and I'm going to say that the upstream invert level is always vertex 1 because my GIS guy told me so. Okay, so in here I'm going to go under property and I select str height. Okay, so I'm going to get the level from here and put it onto vertex 1. Then the next one, so downstream, I'm going to say vertex property and string height. Now for the index here, this is my vertex number, I'm going to put in there -1. So that will find the last point on the string and set his height to the downstream invert level. And I'll also, no, I don't need to factor that because they are real heights. Okay, so then I hit write, and that's exactly what I had in my other file as well, in my GIS pipe. So I'll read that and show you I had the exact same thing. So I will just use the one that I created with you, and that data to manipulate, I'm going to use everything in this view, which is my 3D view, and I'm going to hit replace existing data and hit apply. And you can see there it has then gone and given this data heights. So if I do an inquire, now I have a height of only slightly higher than what it was. It's now 0.487. We must be in a fairly low-lying area. And this one there is a height, oh, it's actually negative 0.12. So yeah, you can see it's given up height and then also given these pipes diameters as well. Okay, getting close to the end of some of these tools. We have a few more tools here for creating attributes. So I'm just going to turn on this drainage pipe here. If there was some attributes that you wanted to add to this data, actually let's go back to perspective so that it doesn't bounce around because of the webinar. Okay, so under utilities, attributes, there's now a new tool called global attributes. And if we have a look at the set global attributes, it enables you to create your own customized list of attributes that you want to set to data, or you can set them to project attributes, attribute control bar, a whole bunch of things. Okay, so what I want to do is create some points for pits and things like that. Okay, so up here I'm just going to create a string called pit on a model called pit. Okay, and that's about all I need there. Okay, so I'm going to turn on here too my attribute control bar. So under views, toolbar, there's attribute control bar, and you can see this guy is empty. So this is string attributes. You can click on this thing and hit edit, and you can fill out attributes, whichever attributes you want, and then when you create data it will have these attributes set onto there. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that empty. Now on my custom attributes here, I've got one here called pit circular, and what I'll do is I'll quickly show you the file or the editor. So in here I've specified some attributes, and if I come down here, these are the attribute types you can set. So text, real, integer, choice, and then some angles. And you can set whether they're going to be optional or not. and you can set a display name, the attribute name, and also the attribute path as well. You can also set tooltips, and you can also set choice lists as well for anything that's a choice. Okay, so I'll just hit finish there. So now what I'm going to do is, so that when I create the data, it will automatically have these attributes. For the attribute type, I can select attribute control bar. So now when I hit process, I can fill out the diameter here in millimeters. So let's say it is well, let's go 1200, a depth of 1 meter, wall material, let's say concrete, floor material, concrete, roof material, let's say steel, and hit process. Now watch the attribute control bar here. We hit process, and now you get 6 attributes set. So if I have a quick look in here now, you can see here's my attributes. So now anything that I create will have these attributes onto them. Okay, so I can quickly pop around and, well, I guess that's what I get for using a version that is only just been released. I'll send the report. I'll quickly reopen that again. Sorry about that. So for you guys who did attend the conference, as you're made aware that you are able to go get your V14, request your V14 nodes file, so you can start playing with some of these tools. So under utilities, attributes, all right, view, toolbars, turn on the attribute control bar. Those are still in there. That's good. Okay, so now I should be able to create a point, pick on, let's turn on point snap. And so now whenever I create data, it's going to have those attributes. So if I go into a plan view, let's try one, and I can turn on my pit. And then I can F8, and you can see that it has all of those attributes on there as well. Okay, so you can use that to create, as you're creating data, set attributes to the data as you're going. You can also, once you've set it, you can also use this tool here to edit them as well. So here, if I set this to string instead of attribute control bar, I can hit process, and I can pick on the string. And because I'm just using the string picker, it automatically populates the fields here for me as well, because there's only one string. If I picked by model, it's not going to be able to fill these out because they're different. So if I change this to PVC, process, and do my inquire, now it will say PVC. So you can make up, with the editor here, you can make up all of your own choice lists and add all different sorts of ones that you want in here as well. So I think that has covered everything in the list. So I guess it's time for questions, and I'll just bring up the option there to remind you how to type your questions. So if Lisa, if there are any questions, feel free to fire them away.
Sure, thanks, Paul. I'll just read out a couple of the questions that have come through along the way. Lorraine in New South Wales was wondering whether it's, would it be easy enough for you to show again how to translate points by attribute depth? Or is that something that's better caught on the video when it goes up online?
I can quickly show you again.
Great,
yep,
thanks.
So let me just go back. Okay, so if we go to utilities, hopefully this is what she means, is she just wants to know where it was. Attributes, and then translate points by attribute. So I can pick my data, and I just need the name of the attribute that has the depth. So in my case, Lorraine, it was this attribute here called depth below ground level, and paste that into there, and I just hit process. So that's the steps that you need, and it will automatically translate them down for you. So pretty simple. Hopefully that answers your questions. If it doesn't, you feel free to email me or type it in, and we'll get back to you later on as well.
Peter in Queensland has asked, is there any way we can obtain the vertical clearance between two crossing services?
The only real way you can do that, I think, is through the there was a webinar a couple of weeks ago on clash detection, and you can set clearances on those. So I guess it just sets clearances, so if it passes you'll see it. So just under, I'll just quickly show you where it is, but definitely go back and have a look at the webinar. So under check clash, BIM check clash detection, and then there's some rules where you can set clearances, so right clearances, top clearances, you can set all of those. And then once you've made up the rules, there's some detection where you can actually then go apply those rules. So probably don't have time to go right through that, but if you go back and have a look at that webinar, it should clear that up for you.
Thanks, Paul. I'll just make a note, and I'll send Peter the link to that clash detection webinar you mentioned after the presentation. So Stu in New Zealand has asked us two questions. Does the global close get affected if the survey reduction function is rerun?
Yes, 100% it does. It's a CAD edit, and it will be replaced. So yeah, you will need to make sure that you lock your function beforehand, so that if any edits you won't lose that close. I think it would be a nice option in the future to be able to add in a global survey close into the data as well. So that's a good question. What's Stu's second one there, Lisa?
The second question here is, are all these methods compatible with ADAC?
Compatible with ADAC. I assume you're talking about the attributes. So ideally with the setting of attributes, you can use the tools to make up your own attribute file so that you can use with ADAC. Now under the ADAC menu, which is the F12, for you guys who have not seen this in 14, we've had a major overhaul to the ADAC menu. So under data prep and under stormwater, there's some tools here. So stormwater, you can select your ADAC version, and then this will allow you to set attributes to data globally. So this is what I would recommend if you want to set attributes to ADAC data, because this has all of the choice lists that relate to ADAC. So this is more the one that you would use for ADAC, and it has the global ability here.
Thanks, Paul. So Rosen in New South Wales has asked, when using the attribute manipulator file to translate attributes from vertex to string, what happens if the vertex attributes are inconsistent across a string?
If they're not there, they'll just be skipped. They just skip the attribute altogether. Hopefully that answers your question. If it doesn't, you can fire us through an email and we can follow that one up.
Sure. And I'll just read out one more of these live, and then we'll answer the rest by email. So Andrew in Queensland has said, when creating the 3D pits, Is the wall and floor thickness a global setting, or is it possible to include that as a custom attribute, so similar to pit depth, width, etc.?
Yeah, very good question. At the moment, it is a global process. There is an editor to edit the wall thickness of just one pit, but definitely think I have had a few requests for that if to have an attribute where you can set. So I think I will have to go back and add in wall thickness as an attribute that can be set. So yeah, very good question, Andrew. That one, I'll definitely add that one in.
Thanks very much, Paul, and thanks to the audience for all your questions today. Sorry to those we haven't been able to answer live, but I'll be sending Paul through a summary of these questions by email. One of the things that has come up for a few people is whether today's session is being recorded and if we'll put it up. And yes, certainly, we're recording this right now, so we're going to put links through our website. Basically, yeah, anyone who wants to access any of our previous webinars, including today's, which will be up in a few days, on the webinars page of our website, it's got all the video links to anything we've done and where you can register for the upcoming ones and stuff as well. So we'll get this one up too, and I'll also have a look through the list and email direct links to people who've requested this as well. We've got some great in-person training courses coming up too, if you're in Brisbane, Darwin, Melbourne or Perth. So the handout that's available on this webinar outlines what's in some of these, and you can register through the training page of our website or contact any of these email addresses we've got listed here for more information. Our next two training webinars are Downhill Strings, including UV14 features on the 12th of September, and Curb Return and Cul-de-sac Design on the 20th of September. So jump on our website and register now for those. We'll keep you posted on all of that through email and social media if you're subscribed, and if you need to contact us in the meantime, our details are on the screen now. That concludes our presentation for today. Thank you all for attending, and we hope to see you at future webinars.